In some ways, media studies is kind of a new liberal arts degree. It's a way of looking at so many aspects of academic liberal arts and applied liberal arts. So much of what you learn in the humanities and the social sciences is filtered in a way through media these days. Our goal with this class is to introduce mostly first-year students to the media landscape, the changing media landscape, and also what goes into it. Media in itself is just an empty vessel, right? So part of media studies is also studying what that content is and where did it come from and how is it distributed and how is it being consumed by people, what kind of impact it's having. So those are all the things we want to address in this class. I've been working as a journalist for more than 25 years, so I've seen media change dramatically. I literally started cutting tape with a razor blade and tape, magnetic tape, to do radio. So distribution of audio is fairly new. So, this idea of podcasts, a couple years ago, people weren't obsessively listening to podcasts, and that also comes from partly from technological change. That's one of the things we want to explore. How did podcasts become so popular? And advertising rates for podcasts are higher than television. Most people have no idea about that, and why is that? Because it's an engaged listenership. Technology has affected audio. I think technology has affected video in a dramatic way, probably even more than audio. You've got from even just a decade ago, cameras were really expensive. They were hard to access. They were hard to use. Now everybody has a camera, a broadcast quality camera in their phones. So you've got this potential for crowdsourced content from anywhere in the world. But of course, most of the people with iPhones and Samsungs aren't professional storytellers, aren't professional shooters. So there is a real value for journalists there and media professionals to still have a role in that storytelling, but it's a different kind of role. It's changed the dynamic. It's not like I'm the really smart journalist, I'm showing up, I'm reporting on everything, and I'm telling people back home, all the cool stuff's going on in the world. It's much more of a two-way street. The whole power dynamic has changed. I think 18, 19-year-old students, frankly, are probably in a better position than I am even to kind of instinctively figure out where things are going. So I want to be able to empower them to do that. Give them the grounding, give them the sort of scholarly grounding and the practical grounding to understand the current landscape, how we got to where we are, and help them sort of figure out where things are moving. What I want them to do is take this course. Every teacher says this, but I think most teachers believe this. We want you to be lifelong learners, and we want you to take whatever you learn in our little 13-week together with you to the next course you take and the course you take after that, and maybe your career and hopefully your life, and reflect back on what you've learned. I know I still think back on courses I took as an undergrad, as a first-year student, and how that influenced me and how that shaped me, and maybe how the world has changed since I've studied that. So, I think there's a lot you can take away from a course like this. One of the things we want to explore in the class is also the disadvantages of the media landscape. The sort of impetus to constantly be connected and be online and know what's going on in the world. In some ways, we're in our infancy as a society in terms of dealing with the speed at which we can get information. So that's one of the things that I think we're going to be exploring as well, of some of the case studies of information and the challenges of information coming out so quickly. There's a great experiment that the person who taught this class last year, Steve Woodward, had done that I want to borrow from. But he had all the students, 100 students, do a media blackout for 24 hours. No tweeting, no Facebook, no texting, no calls, just unplug yourself. It's kind of an interesting lesson. I've experimented with it myself, inspired by Steve, and I figured I'd just put myself through it before I put the students through it. But it'll be an interesting experience. So both doing the technology and not doing the technology, I think you can learn a lot. I mean, the other part is that there is this push that we all sort of feel to always be connected. I mean, we've all felt this urge to, I got to check my email, I got to check my Twitter, even though you might be in the middle of a conversation with someone. You might be watching a show that you're super engaged in, and yet you feel like this weird, someone tugging on you, like check if anyone's liked something on Facebook, or check if anyone's emailed you or Snapchatted you. And when they do, your phone buzzes in your pocket or rings. So there is this kind of urge and push to be connected that even psychologists have found has some real drawbacks. You see degradations in people's memory and their processing speeds because they're overloaded with this sort of need to have constant stimulation from being connected. And that's another thing that I think we want to draw on in the class, well beyond just media studies and journalism practice, but psychology and sociology and all sorts of different other fields as well, because there's been some really interesting and important work that's been done by scholars around the issue of media and our connectedness. We're also going to be doing some investigative reporting techniques. So I want the students to have some sense of what journalists do and experience that. Dig up information, find data. There's so much data out there, and there's so many interesting ways of analyzing data, presenting data. So that's going to be, I think, an important part of this, both understanding the conceptual aspects of how to use data and the ethics around that, but also the technological aspects, how to analyze data, how to present data in interesting ways.